Life is precious. I think we would all agree. But often we find that we take the very things that we do every day in life for granted until something happens in a blink of an eye. Hello, I'm Tom Russo, and this is In a Blink of an Eye, where we discuss stories from ordinary people whose lives are changed in an instant and how they overcome through faith, courage, and determination. Join me on this podcast for uplifting stories of how people face various challenges and learn to not only survive, but thrive. Now, In a Blink of an Eye is sponsored by TradingCardsMarketplace.com. Discover, connect, collect. That's TradingCardsMarketplace.com. Now, I got to tell you, this is our second go round with my good friend. I'd like to introduce John Askins. I'm excited to have him here. John, thank you for joining us on the program.
Sure, three times the charm.
I tell you, sometimes I think living out in the country has us even more.
Well, yeah, you're in a real rural area there in College Station.
Well, I'm south of College Station now. I'm actually officially in Anderson, so
Oh, okay. Well, that's even better.
yeah, I'm out in the middle of nowhere myself. I'm in between Anderson and College Station, so I'm in the sticks.
Well, the first time I ever went to College Station, it probably looked like Anderson.
It may have. It may have. Well, John, as always with my guests, I like to toss it to them and let them tell a little bit about where they're from and kind of how they got into what they were doing, and then we'll kind of dive into some stories because you and I share some great stories, and you're an awesome storyteller. So let's get it rolling.
Well, you tell me if I'm getting blown out by the sun here. We're in the golden hour, I guess, approaching it. My name's John Askins. I'm a veteran of over, unfortunately, 50 years in the collegiate media area. I've done everything from, oh gosh, Tom, I can't even remember all the stuff that I've done in my career. I started out as a student at Texas Tech, working at the campus radio station, KTXT. And one of the last things that I did at my career here most recently is I actually built a radio station in Fayette County from the very start until it went on the air, KTIM. We call it K-Time in LaGrange in Fayette County, and you can listen online at ktim.org. But in between, I've worked for both inside and outside of the university systems. I've worked for two of the largest sports media companies in the country, and I've just been involved in some really interesting career points during my lifetime. And one of the first things that I learned back at KTXT is you had to learn how to pay to play, if you would. If you wanted to do something real neat, like go out and broadcast the Tech baseball team, you had to go out and sell the advertising. And then one of the other things that really was beneficial to my career is that early on, I was exposed to all kinds of different facets of the media world. So I've done projects on radio, on television, in print, online. I've done websites and just all kinds of things, which ultimately, the more experience you get, the more valuable you become to your employer. So that was one of the things that I was exposed to early on that was really, really valuable. And I really enjoyed that being, a well-rounded type person.
Absolutely. And let's go back even further than Texas Tech. You had your humble beginnings in Houston. I believe you went to Waltrip High School. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That's right.
The Rams? Are they the Rams?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's cool. And you got out of there, went out to West Texas to Texas Tech, and started your career. But I do know that along the way, after your time at Texas Tech, and we'll touch on that a little bit here in a minute, but after your time at Texas Tech, you actually stepped away from the media for a little while. You went to work for a plastics company, I believe you told me.
Well, it was that siren's voice of the oil boom of the 1970s and 80s. I actually had taken my first real job out of tech. I went to work for a radio station in Levelland, Texas, KTLV, and was doing the morning show and all that ha 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 stuff. And I had a friend of mine who called me. He said, "If you ever want to move back to Houston, these are in the urban cowboy days.
Right.
If you ever want to move back to Houston, this is the time to do it because people are making the money hand over fist." And so I did go back and went to work for a company called Plastic Applicators. What they did was they internally coated drill pipe and tubing. Anytime you put something in the ground, it's going to rust. And so that's what that did for the oil industry. So it was a big company. I ended up having something to show for it. I've got a scar on my left cheek here from 8 round drill pipe tubing that a drunk guy knocked over, and it hit me in the face. And so I went through the training, courses, and within 3 months, I was shipped out to New Orleans. And man, I had a beautiful condo on Lake Pontchartrain. At that point, and this was about 1980. I was making big bucks. I had an expensive car account, a company car, had a golf club membership, with Bum Phillips when he moved over to the Saints. And things were going great, except the oil business went,
It tanked.
it
Yeah.
tanked. And so I knew I had some vacation coming up, and I also knew that I was a low man on the totem pole as far as seniority was concerned. So I took some time and I went up to southwestern Colorado, Pagosa Springs, and my parents had a ranch for 45 years up there on the San Juan River. On the way, I picked up a copy of the Albuquerque Journal. And when I got up to Pagosa, I started looking over the one ads, and in a little tiny ad in it said wanted sports information director at a little school called New Mexico Highlands in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And so I called them. They said, "Well, come over." And I drove over that next day. They hired me on the spot. And this was in August. And, the football season was like 2 weeks away. But anyway, I started my career. I got back into what I really loved and I guess I was fairly good at. And I just thought if I worked real hard, I'll put my nose to the grindstone and I'll work and I'll get back to the level that I was at. And that really worked out well because I only was at New Mexico Highlands for a little over a year. I got a call from West Texas State in Amarillo Canyon, and they hired me.
Now
And
West Texas A&M.
well, it's West Texas State. And because when I was there, it was Division 1.
Yeah.
It was, so I was there for 3 years. And made me leave is that just that they announced that they were going to drop down to Division 2. Not only that, I had a interview with the incoming new president at the time that was basically hired by Boone Pickens to take it down to the Division 2 status, and he just basically lied directly to me. He asked me to put together uh, some information, wanting to show that whenever WT played the teams around them, like an Eastern New Mexico or an Abilene Christian or something like that, that they drew better because, of the local teams. Well, the information that I got together, going back through all their records and their attendance of, all the past years, proved exactly opposite. They grew better when they had teams, the larger teams come in and play. And so they actually had a press conference and they relieved the guy that had hired me, the athletic director and football coach. And I got a call from one of the TV stations saying, "Hey, what was this news conference about, today?" And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it." Well, so let me check into it. Well, the president had actually called his own news conference, uh, and failed to notify me about it. And so I hadn't called any of the media, so none of the media went. So when I got back, the explanation was, "Oh, we just forgot to call you," you know. And so I immediately got on the phone, and I got out of there within a few weeks, and I was very lucky to do that because there was a mass exodus out of there, and
So to me, your blink of an eye to me was kind of the oil game where it took a tank and it directed you back into the sports media world where you've made a name for yourself, and then you get to West Texas State. I almost said West Texas A&M, West Texas State, and all this goes down, and all this political garbage goes down, and now you're kind of trying to find your way again in the field.
exactly. Well, I've got a reputation certainly as a survivor, and I was lucky to contact a group that was coming to Dallas and opening an office. The name of the company at that time was Host Communications. They've been bought out subsequently by IMG Sports, one of the largest marketing companies in the country. And so I came to Dallas, and this would have been like around 85. And I got to work on some of the neatest projects that I've ever worked on in my career. We ran the Southwest Conference radio network. We
That well.
we actually built the studio from the ground up over on Walnut Hill in Dallas. And not only that, they bought Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, the Bible of high school sports and college
Anybody who
sports.
knows Texas football knows Texas Football Magazine for sure.
Right. And then they also did the University of Texas's publications and the SMU program at that time, which was a nationally prominent program. And so I got to come down to Austin and have fun, selling inventory down in Austin. And it was a great, great time to be in that business. Unfortunately, the gentleman who owned the company, Jim Host, really didn't know the lay of the land in Texas, and he didn't know that if you give a University of Texas $1 more than Texas A&M, you're going to start that whole family feud again. And he started doing side deals with the University of Texas, and then that obviously drew the wrath of, at the time, Jackie Sherrill, who was the athletic director and football coach at A&M, and ultimately the destruction of the conference because, of course, Jackie Sherrill thought that, well, if we had our own radio network, everybody would want to just listen to the Aggies. Well, that's been proved many times over, and so unfortunately, the radio network was destroyed, and everybody had to scramble, to get something on their own for their own university. Now, the one thing I will tell you is that I grew up listening to the Southwest Conference Radio Network back when it was the Humble Radio Network, and it featured probably the preeminent announcers of the day. And the great thing about the Southwest Conference Radio Network, and it was this way when I worked there, um, every school in the Southwest Conference were in every major market around the state. So Rice was on in Dallas and San Antonio and Lubbock and Houston. Texas Tech was on in Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and Austin. And the University of Texas and A&M were on all the major markets. And
Name
so,
some of those announcers for our audience because I know I remember a lot of those people too. I know Jack Dale from Lubbock.
well, Jack Dale from the Red Raiders, and there was a guy named Ray Boyd that I could tell you stories about off the air. That was the color man back then. Some of the other announcers that I became close to were Connie Alexander. Ron Stone out of Houston did a lot of games. Dave South, and I am totally blanking out who was the legendary announcer at Baylor. It was
Gosh. if you were
Yeah.
to put me on the spot. And it wasn't, am I dreaming as Kern Tips? Was he
Well, Current Tips was a little bit before our time.
right?
My dad listened to Current Tips and
I
just
knew he
loved
was
him.
legendary, and he did Rice Games some, didn't he? Or
He did all the games, and he was succeeded by Connie Alexander as the lead announcer. And Connie would go around to the top games of the week.
okay,
So if Texas was playing at Lubbock at Texas Tech and it was a huge game, he'd be up there doing that
right,
game.
right,
And I've got a story to tell you about Connie Alexander. You remember the 1976 game? It was a
absolutely.
huge game, basically for the conference title. And Darrell Royal was the coach. Steve Sloan was the coach at Texas Tech. I'm trying to get out of the sunlight a
Yeah,
little
you're
bit,
good.
but Connie Alexander came into town, and that was the day when the announcers and the broadcast crew would come in on Fridays, and the schools would host a dinner for everybody that was coming in to do the ball game. Take you out to eat, and they would have a hospitality suite at a hotel that they were hosting the people at. Well, anyway, I was lucky, and here I am, a student, and one of my idols I'm hanging around with, and I got seated at his table at the dinner. And so one of the interesting things that I noticed is that the people would be talking and joking and everything else, and Connie would jot down stuff on cocktail napkins, and I didn't know what he was doing. So I took him back to the hotel that night, and so the next morning, up in the press box in the radio suite, I walk in, and all these cocktail napkins are taped on the window over there. And what he would do, and what he was so good at, is that he would hear a word or a phrase that he really liked, thought he could use in the broadcast, and he would write it down, and then he would tape it up on the window of his
Right.
broadcast suite. And so, like, all the classic Connie Alexander lines, uh, flags flew like autumn leaves, like on that last play, or spun like a top to the turf, and drugged down by a drumstick and all that stuff. He picked that up by listening to people talk, and he just put those ideas up on the press box window.
Well, what and that's a great story because it gives you an insight to, like you said, one of your mentors or one of your idols during your beginning days in the industry. That kind of gave you a leg up to know how the game worked and how different people made different things work. I can remember a story with you, and I'll get to that when we get to our time together. But let's go back now. So you're leaving host, and I remember you said something to me about a group that was out of California that you did something with. Tell me about that.
Well, the top two businesses in that field, as far as college athletics were concerned, was Host Communications and another company called Touchdown Pro Sports, and their offices were in San Francisco and New York. And when we were at Host, that was our competition, and we did a lot of things that won a lot of contracts away from Touchdown Pro Sports. So they didn't like that very much. And ultimately, I decided to leave Host, and I got a call from Touchdown Pro Sports, and I had gone back up to Pagosa Springs at my parents' place, and I was standing out in the middle of the San Juan River doing some trout fishing, and my mom comes down. She goes, "You got a call from San Francisco?" And I said, "Well, I don't know who that is." But it was from a gentleman who ran the office there, and he offered me a job to come out and work for that company. So this would have been about 87, I guess. And so I ultimately went out, and I was the director of university services for Touchdown Pro Sports, and basically covered the nation. I dealt with colleges, from Seattle to Miami, and
And you wound up getting some of the accounts back that host
yeah.
taken away, right?
Well, I guess that's why they hired me, because yes, I like the Cotton Bowl, and We did all the major bowl game programs, and what we had done at Host was we just came up with an idea of one-stop shopping. If the university had their publications contract coming up, we'd go in and we'd say, "Hey, not only do we want to do um, your game programs, we'll do your media guides, we'll do everything that you need done. Plus, we'll even do like your coaches shows and stuff like that, and any kind of TV projects that you have." So that's the way that we were able to win away the business from Touchdown Pro Sports. And ultimately, uh, when I went to Touchdown, when I went to them in California, that's what I had them do, is basically not only just do it ourselves, but we would partner in with companies like Learfield and some of the other regional sports networks that had lost their business, and we were just going to go in as a group, and we ended up winning a lot of the business back that we had won while I was at Host.
Well, you called yourself a survivor earlier, and I think as we go through your career, people are going to understand why you're that survivor. But this was kind of the beginning of it. It's where you're thrown a curveball, and you have to pick yourself up, and it almost seems like your parents' ranch in Pagosa Springs was kind of your Taj Mahal to go and just relax and clear your mind and get something going again.
Well,
And
I guess you could say that.
and
It was.
and it always kind of came to you because of your work ethic and because you're a survivor. You kept getting rediscovered and you kept reapplying your skills in new ways. So pick it back up. So now you're at Touchdown Club, but then you leave them.
Well, not the Touchdown Club, but
Touchdown
Touchdown
Promotion.
Pro Sports.
Yeah.
So I had a friend of mine, Jack Stanfield, who actually had played hockey for the Houston Aeros back in the day, the Gordie Howe days. And I would always talk to him, and he said, if you ever come back to Houston, we'd love to have you come to work for a little company here that we're starting called Home Sports Entertainment. So I took his offer up, and I came back to Houston. I guess I'd tired of living across the country a little bit. So I came back to Houston and basically was on the ground floor of the regional sports network movement, if you call it that. Um, Touchdown was really good to me, but I just wanted to sort of come back to Texas. And Home Sports Entertainment has now evolved, a couple of times. They went to Fox Sports Southwest, and now they're basically the Rockets and the Astros have formed their own company, but most of the people that worked at both of those places are working for them, at least the really good ones. So I was employed by Home Sports Entertainment, and at the time, the regional sports networks decided they needed to compete against ESPN on a national basis. And so they formed a company called Prime Sports Network,
Right.
and I was basically in charge of that. And have a lot of wonderful memories here and worked with some great people. Uh, but ultimately, the regional networks really didn't find a good enough way to work together. They had so many hours of local programming, for their local teams, that they didn't really have a lot of other time available for programs that would go across their networks. So I decided that I had worked for people long enough, and I was going to do something on my own. And so I stepped back, and I formed my own consulting company, uh, Sports Media Group. And basically, I worked for colleges all across the country, uh, trying to maximize the revenue for their media projects, their coaches shows, their games. A lot of the conferences, like the Missouri Valley Conference, needed help getting national exposure for their basketball and baseball, and so I worked for them for quite a while, and that was a lot of fun. Um, I had gotten married, and I'd been married for 5 years, and it didn't work out, so I got divorced, and I just said, I want to go off and do something that I would like to do. And so I moved back up to Pagosa Springs, and I did a daily sports talk show, Skynet Sports, for in the afternoon drive time, and it was heard from Grand Junction all the way down to Albuquerque, down the western slope of the Rocky
And
Mountains.
and that's where I have to interject, because that's around the time that you and I actually met.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell the listeners, full transparency. John and I have actually known each other for about 30 years now. It's hard to believe, but we have off and on done some things together. But I will never forget being at a home game at Texas Tech University. Me and my wife were sitting in our season tickets, and we're sitting there enjoying the game. And anybody who knows my wife knows that she knows more about football than most men, and we're sitting there having a great conversation about where the tight end who ran across the middle was from high school, and where he should have signed with this team or whatever. And we're having a great conversation, and this man is sitting in front of us, who turns out to be John Askins, turns around and starts talking to us like, man, you guys really enjoy football, you know a lot about football. And one thing led to another. We became friends. We went out to eat that evening. John told me about his Skynet Sports program. I
Mm-hmm.
believe you were on KDNN and KDGO in Durango, I believe.
You're right, right.
And KENN was in Farmington, New Mexico. And you invited me to be a co-host a couple of times a week on the show, and it was thrilling to me, because that was my first venture ever on the airwaves, and I was in awe. You talk about a mentor. You were a mentor to me, because I got to see a true professional who had all this experience and how you handled things. And it was amazing to me, and I can't thank you enough for that opportunity for me, because that gave me a lifetime of memories. We did some fun stuff. We covered the Big 12 media days. We covered the Big 12 championship game. I mean, I sat in a press box right next to Brent Musburger. I mean, it was cool.
How was Brent?
And so it was a lot of fun, and I owe all of that to you. And we did that show a couple years, I think.
Yeah, I have great memories of that. I had met a high school coach who had just won the state championship in Durango, and I asked him if he wanted to be the co-host with me. John Kearns, he's now in Grand Junction, and some of those projects like that are like the very first stops in your career. New Mexico Highlands, West Texas State, Skynet Sports offered me the opportunity of doing whatever I could think of. Whatever we thought of, we wanted to do, we could do. And so those type jobs are really, really fun. And yeah, I mean, it was very enjoyable. And so that sort of takes me up to where, I'm at Skynet Sports, and I have a friend of mine, Brian Faison, who was the athletic director at a Missouri Valley school when I was at West Texas State. And he called me. He said, I'm taking the job at New Mexico State, and I've got a position. It's only a 1-year position, funded for 1 year, but can you come in and help me? Because I've got problems. I want to look at the areas of fundraising, uh, our radio network, and also the sports information office. And so I came in, and one of the problems, I guess I would have to say, in my career is because of my experience, I make things look too easy. And that really has gotten me in trouble because when you make things look too easy, then anybody thinks that they can do it. So I went to New Mexico State again. I got there in August, before about 2 weeks before football season started. The last game that New Mexico State had televised was like 5 years prior to that, was a ESPN Big Monday Night basketball game that had no TV until up to when I got there. Well, the first thing I did is I went to a station in Albuquerque and one in El Paso, and within 2 weeks, we signed a contract to broadcast all of their football games, and I would say we probably did 10 or 12 basketball games. And we had a great product to sell because Lou Henson
Yeah, those
had
basketball teams always been pretty
yeah,
competitive.
had just come out of retirement. They'd had some basketball scandals, and Lou Henson came out of retirement and took the job for $1, and came back, and he was a legend there when I was there already. So we got the job. We got the thing turned around for the first time in 15 years. The athletic department was in the black. And I really helped out my friend, and but like I said, the job was only funded for 1 year, and so really didn't wasn't interested in working for free. And so I came back to Houston, and just was focusing on sports media group, my clients, in the different conferences. And so that takes me up to about the year 2000. um for the next 4 or 5 years, I did consulting. I did a lot of play by play. I just got a bell ringing in my ear. I don't know what that was, but um, I was focusing on my clients, and I did a lot of radio play by play. One of my highlights was I got to do the games from the College World Series, which was a lot of fun, and also did a lot of college football, which is probably my favorite two sports. Worked with Westwood, and really enjoyed a lot of uh, you know games
And you were
over
kind
those
enough to
years.
let me work a few games with you as well. We did.
You're always available. You're always cheap, so I always called you first.
So I was able to do. Yeah, I think we did Vince Young's first college football game. Was at the Reliance Center, I guess it was,
No, it wasn't his first football game. It was the first game ever at Reliance Stadium,
okay, okay.
and
He played
yeah, it was
Rice. I think they
it
played
was
Rice. UT played Rice.
Rice played Texas, right, at Reliance Stadium, now Energy Park. So I did that, and then I had a friend with the Big 12 conference call me and said the people in Lubbock were wanting to start a national award for the shortstop of the year, Brooks Wallace. It was going to be the named recipient. And that was someone who I knew very well. I broadcast his games when I was back doing Texas Tech baseball. So I went up there, and after being involved with, uh, I guess I left out one step. After being involved with, well, this was been in the mid '90s when I decided to, step back and do things on my own again. A group had contacted me here in Houston called the Greater Houston Sports Association. And they were doing a National Baseball Player of the Year for college baseball called the Smith Award, named after one of the founders of the Houston Astros. Of course, Roy Hawthines, but R.E. Bob Smith was also probably the big money guy behind it all. So I shortened the name to the Smith Award and went to work as the executive director of the Greater Houston Sports Association. And we gave away the College Baseball Player of the Year award for about 5 years. And through my contacts, I was able to get it nationally televised. And it was a nice dinner. And it was a very successful fundraiser in Houston. So I was doing that when I decided that that I would take some time off again, and then that's where that catches me up to where I was in Colorado again. I was going to Colorado,
Your
and
nirvana, yes.
yes, and this friend of mine at the Big 12 office called me and said the people in Lubbock were looking to do this national award. Excuse me. Um, so I called them, and they were going to do the Brooks Wallace Award, Shortstop Player of the Year. So I told them, I said, well, let me tell you that I know that the people in Houston who were doing the Smith Award were about to change it to the National Pitcher of the Year and name it the Roger Clemens Award. So I said, why settle for a shortstop of the year? There's an opening for a national award again. And so why don't we do the Wallace Award as the National Player of the Year? Well, that went over great, and we started down that road. And Kurt Suzuki out of Cal State Fullerton was the first, um, Wallace Award winner. And through my contacts, I was able to get that nationally televised. And I said, also, let me tell you that one of the things that we were also working on, but had not done in Houston, was a college baseball Hall of Fame. Well, they of course loved that also, and so we established an entity called the College Baseball Foundation. I was the first executive director, and we created the first College Baseball Hall of Fame. And in 2006, in brought in our first class, which was probably one of the most amazing events I've ever been involved with. Anybody who was anybody in college baseball, from Rod Dato at USC to Skip Bertman at LSU to Ron Frazier at Miami, um,
Heavy.
Cliff Gustafson at Texas. I'm leaving out Bobby Winkles, who established the Arizona State program,
Yes.
and then those were the coaches, and the players were guys like Robin Ventura, who'd set the all-time hitting streak mark at Oklahoma State. Bob Horner, who had been a great Arizona State player. Uh, Brooks Kiesnick at the University of Texas. Will Clark. I know I'm going to leave somebody out,
Well,
but
there were a bunch. That was a great class. I
yeah,
know
it,
exactly
it
what
was
you're talking about.
it was the most amazing event that I've ever personally been, around. Uh, so we did that in 2006. I was there through there. We started in 2004, creating the event. The Suzuki year was 2005 and 2006. We started with the Hall of Fame, and then in 2007 we selected the next class. And at that time, I just decided that I would step away from that. I'd gotten remarried and wanted to come back to Houston, where she was from, and so um, that was one of the joy I've had in my career is I can think of about 3 or 4 events that started here, and it was nothing, and I saw it go to complete fruition. And that is one of the most incredible feelings that you can have in any business, to see one of your ideas become flesh and blood, and be a successful event.
Oh, I know you're a true visionary, and certainly you're a survivor. And the reason why I think you're such a great blink of an eye guest is because you are that survivor. You have reimagined yourself several different times, had these visions, and made them happen. And you've done it with some of the most impressive, different people in the industry, all the way from San Francisco to Houston to Dallas to Lubbock
To
to
Levelland,
Levelland. Levelland, it was funny when you said Levelland. My wife actually played tennis at South Plains. That's
Really?
yeah, she was a scholarship player for tennis at South
Mhm.
Plains, right there in Levelland. So I know Levelland very well as well. So
Well,
all of those things make it amazing. And I remember you said you gave me a quote one time from Spike Dykes. Do you remember what that was?
well, I know that I've been a survivor, and a couple of reasons for that is uh, I learned the most important thing that I've learned is to be able to forgive someone who has really done something awful to you. I mean, my career has been, uh, great, but just like anybody else, I've had to deal with setbacks. I've had to deal with people who just didn't understand what I was doing or how I was doing it and just really weren't supportive. I've had unsupportive bosses before, and I've actually had people that have really put the screws to me. But one of the most powerful things that I have discovered is the you have to develop a willing ability to just say, I forgive you. And one of the most powerful things, there was one gentleman in particular that just really did me really badly. And I had a lot of angst about that for a long time. And one day I just said, I'm going to get this negativity out of my life. I'm going to forgive that person.
It weighs you down. It
At that
weighs you
time,
down.
it was like, you
Yeah,
know, it
yeah.
just blew my head off because there was a palpable feeling that I got of relief. And I think what you're also referring to is Spike, always gave some humorous,
Anecdote.
dinner speeches. And one of the things he said was, it's important to have a good memory, but it's just as important to have a good forgetter. And I've carried that with me, my whole career, and it's been very important. And I go back to what I was saying about making things look too easy. One of the problems that I've had to overcome is, and I'll tell you a story, and it's even in the national news just recently. Kirk Cignetti, the coach at Indiana, has come in 2 years has taken the losingest team in college football to the national championship. Unbelievable. It should be a movie. I mean, that kind of story is just unbelievable. But people are acting like he's like, wow, what an overnight success. He's not an overnight success. He's like 60 years old.
Yeah.
And
Google it.
and what he brought to Indiana was all the experience that he's had in his career. And one of the classic stories like that is when Nike, the shoemaker, was looking for a logo. They went to a New York firm, and their top person in that firm was a lady, and these guys from Nike went out to lunch with her. And so the guy sat down and told her, what
They
business
want it.
they were in and what they were doing. And at the dinner, she makes this swoosh on a cocktail napkin and holds it up. And that's what has enabled one of the things that's enabled Nike to become, a dominant player in that industry for generations. Well, those guys from Nike were astounded, but they weren't happy. They said, well, it can't be this easy. We go out to lunch with you, and in 10 minutes, you come up with a swoosh. Well, that goes back to Kirk Cignetti. One of the problems that I've had experience on my own in my own career has been people don't haven't given me, or they don't give people like Cignetti or this lady at the ad agency credit that what they're receiving is the culmination of all the experience that those persons have had in their lifetimes, and they're able to bring it all together and come up with an amazing, project. When I when I did the College Baseball Hall of Fame, I brought in national TV. I brought in the college baseball writers to be the electorate. I did a bunch of things like that, and yet the people up there really didn't appreciate it because they just thought, well, if it's that easy, we can do it.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, after I left, it fell apart, and it's no longer in Lubbock. Last I hear, the College Baseball Hall of Fame is moving to Kansas
In
City,
Kansas City, yeah.
as I understand that Patrick Mahomes has given them a little bit of money, and it's going to be up there. And I never wish that any project that I've worked on that I've left, I never wish them harm because I worked real hard on those projects and I want to see them succeed in the long run. I don't want them to go away. And so
And
that
you're the creator. You're the guy who molded it to make it what it is. And
well, it was my idea. I
yeah,
mean, I've learned in my career that you take away the guy who had the vision, who had the inspiration, you pretty much take away the skeletons of bones of what the project's
absolutely.
going to be.
Absolutely.
And so at that point, I basically retired again, and I was happily married and retired. And unfortunately, me, I'm always thinking about things. And we bought a place out in Fayette County and in LaGrange, and I was reading the newspaper again, and I saw a little article in the newspaper saying a
Things
group
come
out of
full circle.
yeah, a group out of Austin was looking. They wanted to build a new radio station out in LaGrange. Well, I went to a meeting, and they found out what my experience was, and so they got me involved. Well, ultimately, the guys who were trying to do it, that it all fell apart, and I made the mistake of saying, "Okay, guys, I'll get the station on the air. I promise you that I'll get the station on the air." Well, ultimately, they fell away. I bought them out, and my wife can tell you how thrilled she was about that. And I built a radio station from scratch. I had never done anything like that before. And so I built a 5,000 watt FM, that reaches 5 counties. That's located in Fayette County in LaGrange, Texas. And I ran that 24 hours a day with Brenda, my wife, who does all the bookkeeping and everything else for it. She was making six figures at ConocoPhillips and retired. It was the worst business decision she'd ever made in her life to
I've
work
made
for
some of those myself.
to work for free. So anyway, we did that for 8 years, and I sold the station to a gentleman who had worked for me for 6 of those 8 years, and so we're officially retired now once again.
Well, congratulations on that, and that's the amazing story, ladies and gentlemen, of John Askins. And I've got to tell you, I did this in a little bit different format than I normally do, but a big reason is the story that is John Askins, reinventing himself, the visions, the survivorship, everything that he does across the board has made him a true mogul in the sports media industry. And I'm honored that he's been here, and I'm honored that I can call him a friend. And we're hopefully going to get a little sports podcast going here pretty soon too. We're trying to do that. He and I have been talking about that, so we'll see what happens with that. I usually keep these to about 30 minutes. We're already pushing 50 minutes, and that's how it goes when you're having a great time. But if you like hearing uplifting stories of overcoming challenges in life, click the like and subscribe button below. Perhaps you have a story of your own to share: an accident, sudden loss, PTSD, alcohol, drug abuse, a natural disaster, illnesses, all kinds of things, or just overcoming just things that may happen in your everyday life, and you would like to share that journey of overcoming. Please contact me at the email shown below for consideration for a future podcast interview. I rely on viewers like you to share their stories. Thanks again to tradingcardsmarketplace.com for their continued sponsorship to bring these great stories to all of us. Tradingcardsmarketplace.com. Discover, connect, collect. Awaken the collector in you. I want to thank everyone out there, especially my family, our military, all the veterans and first responders who put their lives on the line every single day. And please don't forget our teachers and medical professionals who all make the world better, one person at a time. But most of all, thank God for all of the blessings in our world. We just need to make sure that we concentrate on them every single day. And so I leave this with you until next time. Carpe diem, my friends. Seize the day.
All right. And go.